Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's Friday. Good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Ayawakade. Good morning and welcome. It's August 30. Yes, it's a Friday morning and it's right there looking at a beautiful weekend for every one of us. Again, welcome to Sunrise Daily. Well, guys, let's stay in Lagos for a bit. And this is Unilag, the Senate building of Unilag. And that's where we are this morning, showing you just look at that beauty, right? Just look at that beauty. And it's just, you know, I always remember that song. Yeah, absolutely. I always remember that song by Majek Fashek. Says the sky looks misty and cloudy.
Y'all do too much.
Absolutely.
Wait, now he remembers the song. Let's hear the song first.
Well, it's because you don't sing. You don't sing, Chamberlain. You just rap. But you know what? Let's leave that to another time, or maybe that's what you do. But this is Unilag. I'm sure, Chamberlain, you will remember that one. You remember. You remember. Unilag. This is what we're showing you this morning. One of Nigeria's unique and foremost universities. Right at the end, at the top of your screen, is the Third Mainland Bridge, which you always look at. That's how you see Unilag when you are driving on that road. Now, what makes Unilag news this morning is information coming forth from the facility, from the institution, that there is something happening right now concerning power supply to Unilag. We understand that according to the Eco Disco, power supply to the institution has been suspended for now. And of course, the organization, that's the Eco Electricity Distribution Company, has put out a system to try to clarify what exactly the issues are this morning. And it is about a bill, an electricity bill running into more than 1 billion naira, from which the institution has only paid 180 million naira. And they're saying, look, it's a far cry from the thing, and it's not just something that suddenly happened. It's something that they've been talking about for a while. Now, the university facility is only restricted to just using generator every day. And Chamberlain and Kayla, you can just imagine how much they must be spending. And guess what? It's not just Unilag. Remember, Chamberlain, we had that discussion about the University of Ibadan recently, where power supply was the reason that they also wanted to take some action. That the dust hasn't quite settled in the University of Ibadan as well. As we speak, the students and the university authorities are at loggerheads. I hope the same thing doesn't happen here between the students and the university management. But can we just enjoy the skyline without these issues?
Why were they disconnected from the national grid?
Well,
are they owing? Why were
bill,
they disconnected from the national grid?
A bill of 1 billion naira,
Why
Kayla.
was it disconnected? It's a billion naira bill.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, lovely scenery right there, by the way, of University of Lagos, the iconic University of Lagos, I might add. When those kind of scenarios come in the way of any university or tertiary education, or even education at any level, it's always a huge concern, which is part of why we're highlighting a lot of these things this morning. By the way, I mean, you know, not many schools have the privilege of having...
Have you been to my school?
Wait, have I finished?
Have you been to Ahmadu Bello University?
Oh, you have a lovely...
Hey, you don't know.
But there's a nice...
You don't know.
There's a beach line there. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that the beach line. Okay, my bad.
Come to ABU Zaria, you will understand what I'm talking about. You will see what we mean by beautiful scenery.
All right, we'll go to the beach line in ABU, like she said we should do. Okay, but...
We have a dam. We have a dam. We may not have a beach, but we have a dam.
Okay. I didn't see that coming, guys. Okay, but maybe. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't say Jebusites, but oh no, she's clouding my thought process.
Okay,
but,
I won't anymore.
You know, I also spoke about some issues plaguing University of Lagos. They have this back and forth between themselves and Eco Disco. So let's have a little listen to the Deputy Vice Chancellor on why. You ask why, right?
Yeah.
Have a look.
Some pretty incessant increases in tariffs. The University of Lagos, based on the tariffs that were in place as at 2023, would usually have an electricity bill of about 180 million at peak period. And we had planned. It has never been easy, but we had budgeted to be able to accommodate our electricity bill at that rate. Come 2024, early in the year, tariffs again were reviewed upward, as a result of which we got served bills of about 295 million per month. Number one, this is completely unbudgeted for, and as a public institution running under the federal government rules, in terms of, we certainly can't even be, there was nowhere to find that kind of money without doing some environment. I cannot overemphasize the fact that it makes planning to run a university virtually impossible when charges and tariffs change at any time in the course of a year.
Wow, just part of what she talked about there, the challenge that the school is facing in terms of the bills. They used to have about 180 million previously, and then you consistently keep having changes, the migration issues. So clearly a lot is not clear, even though lately EcoDisco themselves have responded to some of these concerns raised by the University of Lagos about being disconnected from the grid and running generators. So you can see that it says that the management of EcoDisco, it says despite the payment of 180 million naira for July by the University of Lagos, it is imperative to clarify that the payment was only, guess what, partially defrays a small fraction of the outstanding debt owed by the university, which, it says, significantly exceeds the amount paid and currently stands at over 1 billion naira.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
So they went
Who
on
let
and
this
said
happen?
that, yeah, but even though he says they'll be having consistent negotiations, that they had spoken severally, and the migration from band B to A tariff followed due process with adequate engagement, and it goes on and on. So look, clearly there are matters that need to be addressed and resolved, because if a tertiary institution is cut off,
and a very important school like University of Lagos,
and if University of Lagos is struggling to meet up with this, where they are located in the commercial capital, you can imagine several other schools who perhaps don't make as much revenue or get funding from government as when due. How are they going to cope?
I mean,
are they going to increase school fees for students?
University of Lagos has a very prestigious alumni. I think that's one of the things I know about this school. It has a very prestigious alumni. I think they need to come into this matter. Because the cost that they will be incurring right now, plus the debt, and that debt will keep building, you know. It'll keep growing. So if there's any way that the school, the alumni of the school, every notable person, there's so many notable people that graduated from University of Lagos. Maybe they need to come into this situation, because they cannot allow their school to be going through this at this time. It's not
there's
right.
a fundamental problem, because if this tariff, which affects everybody, stays, I know that government was speaking about, what, 50% tariff, trying to wrap my head around all of that anyway, guys. But University of Ibadan, have you forgotten, guys? The other day we spoke about that as well. The students they hit the street saying, look, we can't accept all this kind of increases, because they too were struggling.
Yes.
They also thought, why are we going to raise money to pay for all of this tariff? So it is a challenge. So I know that ASU also trying to weigh in, no, not even about this tariff. They were talking about, how much was it? How many billions? I mean, yesterday the president said government should pay 25 billion in 2 tranches.
Yes.
And then probably let the others go. So we're in a bind. Schools are in a bind in the country in terms of what to do and how to proceed. Well, we'll focus on that as we progress. But let's go ahead now and take you through some of the dailies this morning, Ayo.
Among other stories on the front pages this morning, is food prices. The Blueprint newspaper leads with crash food prices in 1 month of face sanction, FG warns retailers. Import charges, high bank interest, rent increment are challenged. That's according to traders. And that's not the only newspaper talking about that one this morning. Look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. FG gives traders 1 month to crash prices. FCCPC meets stakeholders, explains why 30-day moratorium was given. Cites law empowering it to act. Decries prohibitive prices of goods in supermarkets. Shareholders blame insecurity, multiple taxation, high cost of transportation for high prices. The front page of Daily Independent as well. FG plans crackdown on businesses fixing, hiking prices of goods. Gives market associations, transporters 1 month to crash prices. Once individuals, corporates face substantial fines, imprisonment. All of that packed on the front page. You find the details on the inside pages of the paper. The Nigerian News Direct says traders frustrating economic stability with exploitative pricing. That's according to FCCPC. Issues 1 month moratorium for traders to desist from act. Details of that story on page 4 of the paper this morning. Two other stories. The Daily Times has NLC can't be intimidated, says Ajero after police interrogation. Says NLC remains committed to defending the rights of Nigerian workers. Real reason why police invited NLC president emerges. The details of that story continue on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The Leadership newspaper says alleged terrorism financing. Labour talks tough after Ajero's visit to police. That story is on page 4. Says we won't be intimidated. External pressure behind my travail. That's according to the NLC president. Find the details on page 4 of the paper. Look at the front page of New Telegraph. Striking doctors will invoke no work, no pay, says FG. Reiterates it's been working with NSA, others to ensure immediate safe rescue of Dr. Hupola, to provide 50% electricity subsidy for public hospitals, varsity, others. That story is on pages 2 and 3 of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. The front page of this Nigerian newspaper has that same story. FG approves 50% electricity subsidy for hospitals. Gas shortage hits geometric power as body lords government. Abia State for assistance. Details you find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Nigerians paid 1.04 billion naira ransom to kidnappers in 1 year. That's according to a report. What report? Look at some details on the front page. 1,056 killed, 7,568 abducted in 1,130 incidents. Find out who said that. Credible intelligence lacking, according to former AIG. Ex-DSS boss wants emergency declared on security. Troops neutralized 1,166 terrorists in 29 days. That's according to DHQ. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Business Day newspaper, look at what it says. Nigeria's Olympics flop costs athletes endorsements and sponsorships. The details continue on the inside pages of the paper. Look at the Guardian newspaper. Living in Abuja, the making of a capital city of gross inequality, rags, riches. It's a big story on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And these are some of the papers we have for you today.
My take is on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper, which is a two-in-one perspective, by the way. On the top right of the nameplate is FCCPC decries unending price fixing by business owners across Nigeria. And that is concerning, of course, as we mentioned earlier. Other newspapers carried that same story of the pricing by Nigerians. Someone told me that in Kano, during the Ramadan season, that the price of pure water, the sachet water, was so high. I think he said it was something almost about 700 naira or thereabout during the Ramadan season. And that immediately after the Ramadan season, it crashed to 200 naira. Well, I was very, very shocked. And that's perhaps gives some, meaning to this story making the rounds on the front page of this paper and like 3 or 4 other newspapers this morning. And that is something that is really, really concerning. They have given their own reason, that's the prices of the retailers, that certain other things inform the things that they have to do. And maybe what they didn't add is that they also have to pay the same school fees for their children, particularly those in universities, such as we highlighted this morning. So, Chamberlain, when you were talking about the situation in the University of Lagos the other time, and you also cited the power situation in the University of Ibadan. This, on the front page, the lead story, is that the federal government has approved 50% electricity subsidy for hospitals. Is it possible for the same thing to happen for universities? Or is the federal government expecting or hoping that because the student loan is now active, students should get that loan and then be able to pay the full value of their university education, and by which now the universities will be able to pay off their electricity debt? I'm still wondering how the University of Lagos, for one, can raise R1 billion to settle its electricity debts, and that's just for University of Lagos. There are quite a number of them spread all over the country. Is it the same fate for all of them? Are the vice chancellors able to come together and agree on some kind of representation to present to the NUC and to the federal government? Can this go into the hospitals, also go to the universities, just for whatever length of time? That's my take this morning, Kayla and Chamberlain.
Well, yeah, interesting points. But I think if we get it right, because I think maybe it might have been a little muddled up, not too clear. But I think the Minister of Power also did say that they were going to subsidize for public hospitals and universities. So perhaps if people go by that headline, which says hospitals, you think it's across board.
Yeah.
But it says public hospitals on the front page of This Nigeria. Even the Minister of State for Health was in Kaduna the other time when he was talking about the psychiatric hospital when they were doing some things there. Yeah, so that is something that people need to find out what exactly is the position. Despite that announcement, why are universities still faced with this challenge? Now, in addition to that, which you see on the front page of This Nigeria, University of Ibadan, they also are going through a similar narrative. In fact, we understand from what the students also tell us is that they've been given till, is it September 8th or thereabout? So they have to pay. If they do not, HODs have been instructed to what? If anybody is not registered, if you close that line or draw the line over registration date, they won't sit for exams, as they will not be deemed to be bona fide students, and so they cannot write any of those exams. But the students themselves are up in arms about all of those, saying, listen, we cannot pay any of these fees because it is harrowing. It is really difficult for us, many who are trying to eke a living and go to school at the same time. So they think, look, this is unbearable for all of them. So it's a matter that needs to be looked into.
Well, let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Today, the Vanguard is on fire this morning.
Oh, okay.
Everything is happening on the Vanguard. I'm going to start with this one, exploitative pricing. Traders get 1 month notice to crash prices. Morning from, yes, morning from, you have 1 month if you're committing this crime. Morning from page 5 of the...
Did they say it's a crime?
It's a crime against the Nigerian people. If you're exploited, the way the FCCPC puts it, it's where competitors come together and then fix a price that'll be good for their profit margin without recourse to the Nigerian people and what they're dealing with.
Well, here's the thing.
So it's not about market forces. This is about a bunch of people coming together to take our money.
So did
yes.
they talk about accommodation as well?
What has accommodation got to do with this?
Oh, so people live there free, right?
No, this is about pricing of food items.
No, so, well, I've not read the story. So I can't go with the headline.
I have read
like
the story. Said, for proper understanding, price fixing refers to an unholy agreement. That's what I've said. Unholy agreement between competing businesses to set prices at a certain level. It can be done either explicitly or implicitly, and it prevents healthy competition that is otherwise expected to drive prices down and improve quality.
How do they prove there's an unholy agreement?
That is what the FCCPC said. When they get here, you can have a conversation.
That they proved it?
Well, they say that this is happening. That is what the FCCPC says. Because apparently the prices of food items in the market do not match what was expected from pricing. If it's market forces that are driving the prices, things should be cheaper.
Well,
things should be cheaper.
Listen, much as we like things to be cheaper and we'll buy things as we need to, but there's a history. I mean, there are several countries that have tried to buy fat. That's the way this comes across. You can't just wake up and order everybody, reduce your price just like that. There's a method to the madness.
Yes, but if people are coming together and fixing a price that is exploitative and only impacts their profit margin and doesn't really reflect what market forces are, then that is why the FCCPC was created, to ensure that these things don't happen.
Well, fine. They should do their jobs. Let's see. But is that sustainable?
Well, let's find out. Let's see how that goes. You can get more on that story, really, from page 5.
Because what about those who then argue? Look, this is based on the first demand and supply principle, basic principle. If people argue that way...
But that's what the FCCPC is saying, that that's not what's happening.
All right, we're hoping that they do have...
proof? Can you be able to, substantiate
We all like to buy things and not break the bank. Of course we all like to. But it's got to be about ensuring that, look, what you're doing has got to be seen to be, okay, this is transparent, this is the way it's got to be, it's legit, it's decent.
Yeah.
Because if you want to do that, chances are, what are the consequences if you apply that mistake or erroneously to certain people because you say or you think that they came together to agree?
I mean, the FCCPC has a lot of... There's a new boss for the FCCPC, and, would like to hear from you. We would like to have you. We would like to have you on Channels TV. I know he hasn't done any interview so far. I haven't seen him anywhere. I've been waiting to see him somewhere. But, just so you can explain to us how this price fixing is happening. Is it really going on? What should the prices of certain goods be if they're really focusing on market forces driving prices up or down, just so you can explain to us.
So who's responsible to ensure that? Because we've also seen in the property market, a lot of toward things are happening there. Who's responsible for that? Who's responsible
for that when it comes to the
property market? Is it because the big guys are there now? We're not hearing anything about regulation?
And then the hike in rent across board.
So who's doing something about that?
Is there someone that checks it? Does the FCCPC check it? What's happening? While we're looking at people that sell tomatoes and pepper in the market, can we take a look at property people as well? Can we take a look at landlords as well? What's happening here? Let's have you, sir, come out, talk to us a little bit more.
Both, I think, in Lagos, even Abuja too, where they say you can't charge 2 years' rent for persons.
Oh yeah.
But
we have people that are doing that.
Blatantly happening.
Yeah.
Who's checking? Who's ensuring that these things don't happen? Don't pick low-hanging fruit and beat and batter people.
Oh, and I don't want us to go without talking about what happened yesterday, Chamberlain. You remember, much ado about nothing. That was a thought that came to my head with the NLC.
Yeah, that's part of our discussion.
That's part of our conversation.
Mr. Gideon Joe is on standby, so we're going to hear all of that from him and more. I don't know if he goes to the markets to buy this.
He does.
Did he pay 2 years' rent in Lagos or Abuja?
He gets here.
I think these are some of the issues we'll talk about in just a moment, everybody. Stay on with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, Mr. Gideon Joe joins us this morning. He's a public policy analyst among several other caps. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure.
Well, quite a number of things played out this week, and two of them really yesterday, some key ones. The doctors, they've been on strike. In fact, they're still on strike. It's a 1 week strike, 1 week warning strike. And then ASU themselves met with the federal government over this, I think when they called the amount, we couldn't deal because it was a lot. In billions, as a matter of fact. And the government trying to sort it out. The next meeting is September 6th. But for that one of NARD, not even forgetting labor. So that also when Mr. Ajo went into the police yesterday. But let's start off with the doctors. Yesterday, the government said they've activated this no work, no pay rule. As much as they're doing what they can to ensure the release of the kidnapped doctor's colleague, but they had no choice than to activate the no work, no pay rule for the period that the doctors will be on strike for. How does this decision come across to you?
It's a catch-22 situation. Each time I reflect on this strike, whether warning strike, interim strike, or protracted strike, I recall the loss of my younger sister at University of Ibadan, University College Hospital Ibadan. They were on a warning strike like this for 1 week. She was on admission, awaiting a heart transplant in 2017. And incidentally, they asked all the inpatients to be discharged, forcefully discharged. There's somebody that her health is very fragile. It was just this 1 week strike they were talking about then. And we eventually lost her because by the time we took her to Babcock University Teaching Hospital, it was too late. She was in the intensive care unit and died the day after. Was there justification for this warning strike? Yeah, good reason. Insecurity of medical personnel. But should it have been 1 week? I think a day or two, maximum 3 days, could have been the ideal. Don't forget, every life matters. One day, there are people scheduled for medical procedures. There are people who have emergency medical, who needs emergency medical attention. In this 1 week, you are staying off work. Not because government is owing you. You are saying somebody who was, excuse me, who was abducted 8 months ago must be rescued. It doesn't take 1 week to draw government attention to your challenge. I understand perfectly well. We are all human beings. I would not want to be in abductor's kitty. Neither will I want any member of my family. But the point is, let's look at the collateral damage of being on strike for 1 week and still expected to be paid. Because for that 1 week that you are off strike, there are many deaths that will be recorded. There are people whose situation will go from bad to worse. Already we have severe shortfall in the number of medical personnel. You know the numbers. Many are living in droves to UK, to Europe, to Middle East, in search of greener pasture. It's the incumbent Minister of Health that is trying to initiate policies that will attract this medical personnel back. But I know government needs to do a lot more. It's not just medical personnel. To make every one of us secure. You cannot be a doctor in the hospital and you are afraid for your own life. And I've listened to one of the executive of NLD who said that in time past there used to be a police post in hospitals, but they are no longer there. So bandits just have a field day. They are looking for medical personnel who will be treating patients that they adopt inside the jungle. So it speaks to the national calamitous situation of insecurity that we are facing.
What about the states in this regard? So are we suggesting, or does it mean that the state themselves cannot weigh in at that point, because the hospital can, one way or the other, find a way to have probably their own internal arrangement or internal security, even if it may not achieve the desired effect, but you have to have something. Do you think that as a people, we, all of us, are we really doing enough, including worship centers, our personal houses? Do you think we still have had a mindset change as to what we need to do about taking care, at least your personal security? Put some measures in place.
Chamberlain, I don't want us to blame the victim. We are all victims. I think it's Professor Isidore Okwewu. He used to lecture in the Department of English Language, University of Ibadan. He wrote a book, The Victims. Every one of us in this country are victims, except maybe the people we call the political class, the political elite. Because what more do you want me to do? In my hood, we hired a gatekeeper come security man. The hood itself has some hired, security men. And there are police stations all over, but not well equipped. You need to see the parallel state of resources that are at our police institutions. Many years ago, I was somebody hit me from the back, and we eventually had to go to the police station. Do you know I have to pay for stationery to write statement? For them to give me stationery to write statement of what happened. As at that time, they don't even have. I'm not sure they do have now. So you have a whole divisional police office that has only one operational vehicle. Of course, I'm not saying that government has been akimbo, but they're just not doing it enough. Yeah. And I believe we are also not prioritizing. We are getting our priorities wrong. That is why things are falling apart. It's not like there has not been any serious or improved funding for security sector, but it has become an honeypot where some people just make mega bucks for themselves.
Yeah, but Mr. Joe, the concept of what I'm trying to explain is that we didn't wait for government before we dug our boreholes to give us water. Yes, in the house. We didn't wait for government, in some cases, to pour certain things on the road where there are potholes to make sure you're able to pass. And for almost everybody else, they are their own local government chairman.
Unto themselves.
They pay for almost everything by themselves.
Is that the ideal?
That's the principle of what I'm asking, because if we cannot, after doing all of that, we can't do a little more for our own personal security. Of course, you know that if you're going to wait for certain things to happen, you might wait perpetually forever. Of course, they have to do what they have to do, government. But I'm only asking, from what you've seen, have we done just a little bit more to make sure, look, you and your family, do what you can to be safe?
And I'm responding that at individual family level, we are doing our level best. That's why I give you instances in my own situation. Personally, our house is gated. We hired a gatekeeper come security man. The neighborhood itself has another layer of security. But you see, you can only do to the extent of availability of your resources. If you want to have a CCTV camera in your house, and we have also seen that these are, when they meant to come for you, all of these things doesn't even help you. Because if you meet the daredevil ones amongst them, look, why are politicians going about in treated vehicles, in bulletproof vehicles? When they attacked, when Ifeanyi Ubah was attacked on his way to his Inouye home, about 6 or 7 people were murdered, policemen inclusive. When they attacked Apostle Suleiman in Edo, about 5, 6 people allegedly were killed. He was lucky to be in a bulletproof vehicle. Do you have one? Do I have one? Does she have one?
It's a security matter. I can't disclose that.
Yeah, no. Do you know what it costs to buy one? And what I'm saying is that our government is not doing enough. Our government is not doing enough. You cannot expect us, okay, should doctors be wearing bulletproof vest to attend to patients? Shouldn't the hospital have some security measures, including CCTV cameras in the consultation room, or is it consulting?
Dr. wasn't taken from the hospital, was she? She was taken from her home.
Yeah, I think within that vicinity.
Yeah, her home was within the vicinity, but she was taken from her home.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that whether she was taken from her home or from the hospital, the point is government isn't doing enough to protect you and I.
So should that no work, no pay rule apply?
I think government needs to temper justice with mercy. In this particular instance, yes, allow this to slide. But what I've read in some of the headlines, may means probably. But I think it will gladden my heart if that lady ophthalmologist could be rescued. 8 months after, she must have been so thoroughly traumatized. I don't know whether she will be able to adjust to normal life, even if she's rescued today. But every life matters. And you should know that ours is not just an isolated instance. I've seen a long list of people, medical personnel that have been abducted, including professors.
In fact, many people from the National Association of Resident Doctors believe that they are being targeted. You know, listening to the NAD president here just a few days ago, that was what his fear was, and that's the fear of a lot of doctors. We're being targeted and not enough is being done to protect us. So the only way we can get the government's attention, and I did ask these questions at the time, we tried to find out, how do you juxtapose, your Hippocratic oath with watching patients die because of something that's happening to one of your colleagues? And they were like, look, we're at wit's end. We're at a point where this is the only choice we have to get the government to listen to us. We don't like it. We don't like the fact that our patients are suffering, but someone needs to protect us. We are being targeted.
But I disagree that it has to be a week long. I think maximally 2-3 days should have passed the message. You see, lives lost cannot be recalled. It's like words spoken. Nobody is documenting how many lives have been lost across various hospitals as a result of this. Yeah. And if today this lady is rescued, as we have learned that the Office of National Security Advisor is on it, and what that brings me to one thing. It will be like it's only Office of National Security Advisor that we have a security architecture that can do the almost impossible. So, can we have that replicated across, even if it's geopolitical zones, so that it's not just having to come to Abuja? Because what we learned was that those 20 medical students that were rescued last week, it was through the intervention of the ONSA, Office of National Security Advisor, with very high caliber technological devices. They were able to monitor, intercept, communications and all of that. If we have that at a zonal level, so that when things happen, you just don't, because there could be a long waiting list of everybody coming to Abuja, please, Office of National Security. And before you know it, some people will start corruptly enriching themselves.
I mean, time is going really fast, but we need to talk about the NLC. One of the stories that came out from after Joajero came back to Labour House yesterday was much ado about nothing. Was this much ado about nothing, or was was there some kind of justification to the behavior of the NLC, when Joajero was called in for questioning?
I think the Nigerian police blew the situation out of proportion. From what I've heard, I know the Labour House very well. It's a multi-story building, about 10, 12 story. That's where you have Citizen FM. Yeah. I've been there severally. So they had a tenant who runs a bookshop.
Someone rented a bookshop.
Somebody rented a bookshop.
Yeah.
And this is the person that is involved in terrorism financing.
And he's the one that is a foreign national.
That is a foreign national.
Okay.
Why will you now rope in the NLC president as if he's actually the one that is doing that by himself?
But that cannot be all the information.
It may not be all the information, but you see, information management is very critical. And you don't toy with an organization like NLC.
So is police supposed to tell us every, well, quote and unquote every, because some part of this information now, it doesn't add up to people who have heard only this part. They'll think, is that enough to invite? There is more.
Do they know more that led them to their behavior?
Well, we can't tell everything now. So what do we do in that scenario? If they say, well, it's a security matter, it's under investigation, what do we do?
Well, no, Chamberlain, what I felt should have been done by the police is not to sensationalize the whole thing. First, you went there in the around 8:39 in the night.
When people are supposed to have closed, right?
Ransacked the place. And that was during the End Bad Governance protest. It happened during that period, early in this month. And NLC said, I mean, we were not the organizers of End Bad Governance. You have given us the minimum wage that we requested. So we have nothing to do with this End Bad whatever. Then you say it's one of your tenants we are after. If you are after the tenants and you have incriminating evidence, all you need to do is to have tracked this person, picked him up, and maybe lead him to his bookshop to raid the place.
How about this? Hypothetically, we're not saying that this is what's happening. What if whether it's IRT or whichever agency investigating, what if they've been able to link or see that there's some association between the individual and NLC themselves? Would that be justified to invite him for questioning?
Yes.
Assuming that were the case, without conceding.
It's not out of place to invite any individual for questioning. But you should not put that person on media trial or trial by the media. And I think that's what the police was more or less trying to do.
I thought it was the media that went to ask the police, what's going on here? Why did you do it? Then they responded. Should they not have responded to the inquiry from the media?
No, it's not like they should have responded.
Are you sure the out of proportion is not being blown by NLC itself?
Oh, there you go.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, if the police has a case against somebody, you don't give that person 24 hours. There is no warrant of arrest in the first place. I recall the day the first PPRO came here on Seun Okibale's show and PoliticsToday. And when he said, okay, was there any warrant to go? And he said, oh, they are covered by the law. You know, they don't. It's not in all instances that they must have a warrant of search warrant or warrant of arrest. I think when you are dealing with a very sensitive organization like NLC, you know, that represents a very critical demography in Nigeria, you need to exercise caution. Okay. More so when there is no love lost.
Well, so some lawyers disagreed with that position. They're saying, look, that's private property. You can't just barge into people's property and for your reason, which is not at least getting a warrant. That's the purpose of getting a warrant.
That's what I'm saying. I'm also leaning towards that.
Okay. Ayo is going to follow up on that particular narrative. Probably if he wants to go to maybe doctors, you never know. Ayo.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Ojo, well, Chamberlain told you earlier that he can neither confirm nor refute what you asked the other time about whether or not he has bulletproof vehicles. I can neither confirm nor refute either. But there is something that I would like you to speak to. Something when he asked you a question the other time about what is the responsibility for states in this, and you said something, and I'd like you to understand. I'd like to understand it. When you said, "Don't let's blame the victim," are the states the victims?
No, Ayo. I think that you took my comment out of proportion. I was referring to individuals, family, and the ordinary citizens as the victims. And I was able to further establish the fact that the government and government across the three tiers and have not done enough to secure. I mean, Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said security and welfare of citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So a government that cannot protect its staff cannot be said to be in full compliance with that provision of Section 14, subsection 2B. If I, as a medical doctor, will still be looking over my shoulder as I attend to patients, if I don't feel secure in the premises of the hospital where I work, or even where I live, then government has not fulfilled its obligation. So it's not like the state, whether state government or federal government, is a victim. No, they are rather the one that is inflicting this on us. And I said something. If we need to have a police post at our hospitals, well-resourced, have CCTV cameras in all the consulting rooms, and across the most doctors are living within the hospital premises, or some doctors live within the premises of where they work because they could be on call. So if you provide adequate security for them, and they have sense of sense that okay, their lives are not endangered, they will be able to put in their best. But situations where you have to look over your shoulder, you start having psychological evaluation of your patient, whether this could be a bandit, whether this man could even, I mean, we have seen, even beyond banditry, we have seen situations where patients and families of patients beat up medical personnel.
Well, you know, not to distract from the issue. My apologies, Mr. Ojo. Not to distract from the question is, what is the responsibility for the state governments? It wasn't always like this. There were times in this country, and I'm not just talking about Lagos or any other part of it, in the entire country, there were times when you could walk easily and freely at 2 a.m., 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you're walking free. You're not afraid that anything was going to happen to you. It's all been in this country. And there are those who have pointed to the fact that the collapse, so to speak, of the local government system was responsible. Do you agree with those who say that the local government, administrations and system could have, been able to prevent some of these unfortunate situations we have on our hands?
Maybe that could be part of the solution, Ayo. Yes, if we have an up and doing local government administration, and we have a grassroots, community-based security outfits that are well-resourced, they can provide additional security to those of the state. You know, the Southwest have to float Amotekun because they felt the federal police wasn't doing enough. But how many personnel of Amotekun do you have in the entire Southwest Nigeria? So if we have functional local government administration, they could also come up with, in the 60s, we have NA police, Native Authority Police. So we could also think of bringing it back to have additional layer of policing, community policing. So that is where it could be part of the solution. But you see, it's not just established. I'm at a quandary. Early in the year, it seems like we are on the verge of having state police. But it's off the radar now. After one or two, state National Economic Council meeting, nobody is sure of where we are with the establishment of state police. And this has to be expeditiously tackled. Because I agree with you, I was born in the 60s. I knew what sense of security was. In those days, we don't have much, but we never were afraid of the dark. We walk around, even going to church, going to vigil wasn't a problem. Today, people go to vigil at their own peril. So it's part of the challenges of modernization and civilization. but you have to rise up to the occasion. The point that has to be emphasized is that we are no longer in those yesteryears, and contemporary challenges have come up. People now hero worship money. If you don't have money, people don't believe you are successful. I mean, I listened to a analyst on another TV station, and he said, one guy that was one of the kingpins of who abducted someone in Kogi State, told his family that he's a businessman and he's doing contract. And then when he was intercepted, they had him saying to his wife that, okay, they are about to pay me the money for the contract. I will come and refurbish the house and all of that. That is to tell you, it's just in a bid to satisfy, needs.
It also
some
speaks
people
to
went into crime because they don't want to be seen as a failure.
It also then, raises questions about trust between the people and the government. It raises the question again. Now, over time, security operatives, beg your pardon, trade unions such as the NERD have come to believe and conclude that, look, unless we use this method, government doesn't listen to us. Now, earlier on, the NERD would, of course, confirm that the federal government had made some efforts at rescuing some situations. For instance, there was a time, I think it was August this year, just this same month, that the resident doctors at the Federal Medical Center organized a demonstration to demand the release of Dr. Popola. But we also remember that 20 medical students from the University of Maiduguri and the University of Jos were kidnapped and released. There was also a Dr. Stephen Eze who was kidnapped and eventually released simply because the NMA, was going to go on strike and all of that. So it begs the question whether or not government has a system, and I'm specific to those whose responsibility it is to prevent and not just, follow this kind of situation on our hands.
I quite agree with you 100%. Prevention is easier and cheaper and better than cure. That is an Englishism, prevention is better than cure. So, but how much of that attention do we have from our government? What our governments have done at the 3 tiers of government is to securitize themselves and their own families. So the rest of the country, gets the short end of the stick. So, I mean, kudos to former President Muhammadu Buhari for setting up a police equipment trust fund. And we don't know how much of intervention police equipment trust fund has been able to do. Several other states have floated police equipment trust fund. But I think we need to do a lot more to invest more human and technological resources in the fight against crime and insecurity in this country. Because you can't rely on old methods of fighting modern crimes. Modern crimes, obviously, I mean, in 15 years ago, you and I don't have mobile phones. People were not transacting businesses on phones. But today is the commonplace. The cybersecurity has become a serious challenge. Ransomware is also very big outside of this country, where multinational corporations are forced to pay ransomware to some hackers and all of that. So it's a big global challenge, but it affects us more because many of us are poor. Many of us do not have sufficient resources to protect ourselves as we would like to, and that the state doesn't seem to be able to do so much. So we need to reprioritize and recalibrate our security architecture to give us a sense of security.
Just one more thing before we go, less than a minute if you will. Mr. Michael Joffa, former DSS operative, has said, look, they should liberalize the gun laws. Honorable Adeogun 2 years ago, thereabouts, said, look, they need to revisit these laws. Senator Nduoko this year says Nigerians should be allowed to carry guns. Considering the challenge we face today, should we then say, look, there's a lot of light and small weapons in hidden places. Why don't we just revisit this and allow Nigerians to bear arms in their houses for protection, in their houses? Would it be a good idea?
No. As far as I'm concerned, it's not.
We should allow ourselves to be kidnapped in our homes?
No, it's not like allow yourself to be kidnapped. Do you know, for you to resist abduction, you must have superior weapon. You have one pump action gun. These people came with.
My neighbors have one multiplied by 6.
Are you so sure that your neighbors will be courageous?
If the law allows it.
Don't look at it from an elitist point of view. Do you know how challenged America is with the state of
I'm not talking about open carry.
No,
I'm talking about
mass
in
shooting.
your house.
How do you then restrict people to only carry it? Before you know, people will carry it in their cars, and they are angry with you.
The law is in your car. If you say in your house, to protect yourself from this.
Let's not solve one problem.
So how do we stop ourselves from being kidnapped from our homes?
I mean, communal efforts.
You just said security is not working.
No, it doesn't seem to be working because it's not yet, we've not been able to fine-tune the communal nature of what needs to be done. I don't believe liberalizing small arms and light weapons. In the first place, how many people can afford to buy the gun, even if you liberalize? Don't forget, you have to also buy the bullet. If you use up the bullet, you have to go and buy. Then, do you have savings enough to go?
You see the people the police parade. They are not elites. You see them, they have fabricated ones locally. They use them regularly. So it doesn't have to be the type that you get. But we'll get your points. You think no, but hey, I wonder what you think out there, really. I should get people to send us their response. Well, it's time for business this morning. Thank you for coming on. Mr. Jide Ojo, always a pleasure to have you on. Let's do business now.
It's time to do business indeed, Chamberlain. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. Starting from the global space, oil prices inch higher on Friday as investors weighed supply concerns in the Middle East, although signs of weakened demand limited gains. Look at the numbers now, and we have to tell you that October delivery expires today. That means after today, we'll be looking at the price of the November delivery. You know, these things, contracts are forward. So for October delivery, which expires today, we see Brent has gone back to $80, $80.17 for Brent after it gained 0.3%, while WTI of the United States is $76.09 after it has gone back, gained 0.2%. And the factors driving this is in Libya, mostly today, because half of Libya's oil production, which amounts to about 700,000 barrels every day, has been offline since yesterday, and exports were halted at several ports following a standoff between rival political factions. Meanwhile, Iraqi supplies are also expected to shrink after the country's output surpassed its OPEC plus quota. Iraq plans to reduce its oil output to between 3.85 million and 3.9 million every day, barrels per day, from next month, that is September. Look at the Naira close now, a bit of appreciation now, and warm to the heart, but hope it's sustained. But I mean, the good thing, I guess, is we should just see that the Naira has been between 1,500 and 1,600. So even though it dropped to 1,600 at the close of Wednesday's trade, we've seen it recover that. There was a 0.79% gain on the Naira. So even though it opened at 1,606 Naira 56 kobo on NAFEM, it closed at 1,593 Naira 93 kobo, while NAFEX closed at slightly higher than that, 1,592 Naira 71 kobo, after it gained 0.91%. It's expected that rates will hover around 1,005 and 1,006, except something really big happens to the market. And talking about the Naira now, currency outside Nigeria's banking system dropped to 3.66 trillion Naira in July 2024. That marks about 3.32% decrease from the previous month, and this is the second decline this year, amid the biggest fall this year. The decline reflects that the central bank's ongoing efforts to tighten liquidity and encourage bank deposits seems to be yielding fruit. The decrease is more significant than the 0.6% drop recorded between March and April. Despite this, the total currency in circulation increased slightly to 4.05 trillion naira in July, suggesting a stabilizing economy, possibly due to increased digital transactions or regulatory measures. We'll talk about the impact of that, what that could mean. We'll discuss that in a couple of minutes. But first of all, let's go to another news which came out yesterday, and that's that the Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission has approved 2 crypto exchanges, Quidax and Busha. We've been talking about this on a crypto segment. Now it's done. It's in the open and it's under Accelerated Regulatory Incubation Program, ARIP. This approval in principle gives them official status as crypto trading platforms in the country. In addition, the SEC has admitted 4 digital asset firms, Trovotech Limited, Wrapped CBDC Limited, Dream City Capital, as well as Housing Exchange.ng Limited, to test their technology under the Regulatory Incubation Program. The capital market regulator says it is reviewing more applications for approval and emphasizes that these current approvals are steps towards full registration, granting legal recognition to these platforms. As you would expect, at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated, we're going to settle on this and talk about possibly expectations. We do know, of course, the central bank has not exhibited very friendly sentiment towards the crypto space. And of course, everything is in the financial sector in the same country. We'll talk about this later on at 1 p.m. That will be during Business Incorporated. Now, what's going on in the corporate? We can tell you that in Citibank, there's a new boss in town, Nneka Nwereji. She's been appointed as the new Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer for Citibank Nigeria Limited, effective August 19, 2024. That follows the approval by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Nwereji succeeds Ireti Samuel Ogbu, who has retired from Citi after 36 years of service. Prior to her appointment, Ms. Nwereji was Citi's head of global network banking across the sub-Saharan Africa subcluster, and she led the team in achieving record business growth amidst considerable market complexities. Her previous roles include the GNB co-head for Middle East and Africa, and also Africa Trade Services. She was the head and financial institutions of Sub-Saharan Africa Trade Head. She brings a wealth of experience, and her 31-year banking career spans markets, corporate investment, banking, transaction services, risk management, and operations. She's been an executive director on the Citibank Nigeria board and has also served on different boards in a non-executive capacity. She holds a degree in computer science and economics with first-class honors from the Obafemi Awolowo University and an MBA from the Warwick Business School in the United Kingdom. She's also attended executive programs at Yale School of Management and University of California, Berkeley. Commenting on her appointment, she says she's excited about this new chapter at the helm of Citibank Nigeria Limited, and she's excited also about working with her dedicated team to deliver full value of Citi's network to clients and stakeholders. Now, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, the FCCPC, has given traders in the country 1 month deadline to reduce exploitation of prices on goods. The FCCPC's Vice Chairman, Mr. Tunji Bello, made this known during a stakeholders meeting in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Mr. Bello highlights a case where a blender cost over 944,000 naira in Lagos, compared to $89, which is about 140,000 naira in Texas, criticizing such pricing practices as harmful to the economy. The FCCPC says it will start enforcement actions after the moratorium ends, with severe penalties for violators. The Consumer Protection Agency therefore urges stakeholders to cooperate and correct their pricing practices before enforcement begins. Now, yesterday, that's a big collaboration between Nigeria and Boeing, and we did bring that story to you earlier yesterday. It was also on Business Incorporated, and this relationship is supposed to cover a whole lot of grounds, including regulation, safety, services, maintenance, the relationship between Nigeria and Boeing. And there we see the Minister of Aviation here in Nigeria right there, and some stakeholders in the aviation sector representing the country as that MOU is signed in Seattle, Washington. And this was done earlier this week, and we expect that we would see the workings in a couple of days.
When the minister came on board, one thing we continue to see that is a great difference is that he has a relationship in the air. Few occasions I have met with him will always say policy, policy, policy. Remove the blocks, remove the clubs along our way, and the rest will flow just easily. We thought we were just saying what we have to say to one of those government officials. But we didn't know how much the minister took it. And when he started running, his pace is fantastic. So, the Honorable Minister, we're happy that we're here. Boeing, thank you for what you have conceived for us and what you are still planning for us. By the end of this whole game, what the minister is doing with the Boeing is over. What he's doing with the laws in Nigeria is completed. He will eventually, at whatever time he will bow out as a minister, would have become the father of the modern aviation sector in Nigeria.
That was Professor Biora there, a major stakeholder in the aviation sector in the country. And of course, we're looking for the goodies that will come from that. The signing ceremony that was held right there in Seattle, USA. Now let's go back to that story about the currency in circulation dropping, and perhaps if it's a good thing or not. Currency outside the bank drops. Implications for the economy. We are having this conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of the CFG Advisory, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. Mr. Adebajo, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Good morning.
So should we be celebrating this? Seems like the target or the aim of the central bank is gaining fruit.
Well, unfortunately, I'm a fan of currency outside the banking system. And the reason why I'm a fan of having a lot of money in the currency outside the banking system is because the informal sector in this country contributes 50% to our GDP and makes up 50% of our economy. And this is the lifeline for the informal sector. But when you have a situation where you have inflation that is high and persistent with stagflation, I think then I think it's important to constrict as much of the money supply as possible, especially when total money supply has increased by 75% year on year to a record 100 trillion. So I think, yes, I think it's important that we constrict as much of the money supply for now, pending when the economy can recover, and then we can begin to go on a path of growth. So mixed feelings, mixed results.
Well, shouldn't we be looking the way of financial inclusion, for instance? Perhaps we do not really need that much money in circulation. We should be looking at the way of expanding the inclusion net when it comes to financial. So even the informal sector can be captured, and it will also aid planning.
Well, yes, but if you consider the amount of population in this country, if you look at the population of this country, and if you take a look at the amount of bank accounts compared to, there are more mobile phones than bank accounts in Nigeria. So the banks have not really gone through that financial inclusion step, and we're moving there. A lot of progress has been made, a lot of progress remains, but I think cash is still king when it comes to the informal sector economy in Nigeria today. But we must admit that there has been significant progress with the digital transactions, which has reached record levels.
So now we've seen inflation taper, we've seen GDP grow to above 3%, we're seeing currency in circulation reduce. Does it mean that the reforms that, seem to have been tightening us before now, are we beginning to see the fruit?
Well, not really. What I would say is the fact that the economic recovery is on track, I think without a doubt. My own prediction is that it's going to be an 18-month period, and we should begin to see results by June next year if we stay the course. But what we are seeing now are good signs. The direction of growth and the direction of inflation, the trajectory is in the right direction, although not optimal. But I think what that tends is that it allays the fears of recession. So what is clear now is that we're not going into a recession, and I think that is positive, but a lot of work still needs to be done, especially on the fiscal side. We must acknowledge also that the debt to revenue numbers have reduced by about 30%, which is also a positive signal. 4.5 trillion of ways and means has been paid back, and revenue collection has improved with the use and deployment of technology, which is putting more money to the subnationals. The states are getting a lot more money. And also the exchange rate differential tends to help. The volatility for the exchange rates have abated, which is also good. But a lot still needs to be done, especially with the social intervention programs. You cannot, it's like you're going to the dentist to remove a tooth without anesthesia. So these social intervention programs are critical to cushion the effects of these reforms. And as we've seen with the 2-day strike and protest early in August this year, social unrest is a critical issue. And as we say it in Nigeria, stomach infrastructure is something that is critical. So while these reforms are going on, government needs to step up on the social intervention programs.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say they are doing a lot in that area? We've seen the suspension of import tariff for some basic staples. We've seen trucks of rice being sent to states, and among others. Wouldn't you say that is enough? Or which other area do you think could also be added to what's already in existence?
Yeah, with all due respect, sending trucks of rice to states is not the solution to this problem. This is a bigger problem than sending trucks of rice to each of the states. I think one of the things we should look at is the tariff structure which they have reduced for food importation. I think that's a step in the right direction. There are structural issues that we need to address in terms of food security in Nigeria. And I think that the security situation in the Northeast, the Middle Belt, which is the breadbasket of Nigeria, which is preventing farmers from going to farm, I think is something that we need to address. Because if we cannot produce locally, then because of insecurity, then that is a challenge that we need to address. The structural issues, like I said, these tariffs, these short-term tariffs, I think are a step in the right direction. But there are fundamental issues that include structural reforms that we also need to address. But what is also not helping is the reckless expenditure by the federal government. I think fiscal discipline, I think, is also very important. If you lead by example, I think a lot of people will follow. So those are the issues that we need to address. The issue now is the fact that stomach infrastructure, hunger, is a #1 issue in Nigeria today. And if you do not address these issues, it will impact negatively on the desired results from the reform program.
So I think another area that might also call for attention is the issue of infrastructure, post-harvest losses, infrastructure, getting the products from the farm to the market, apart from that security, which is a major one? Because, of course, we know that post-harvest losses in Nigeria is about 50%. And also, now we see prices crashes, so some of those crops, because it's harvest period. And then after the harvest period, most likely we get back to status quo. So I guess we also have to look at the issue of preservation, storage, and infrastructure, logistics to get those crops to the market.
That really is not a problem if there's a demand for produce. And I think there's nowhere that you do not sustain a bit of loss in terms of production. But I think government should now focus its intervention, after all these crops have been produced, all these produce have come out, government should now focus its attention on the intervention to reduce post-harvest losses. I think if you're intervening in that area, then I think the benefits will be more significant. And I think that should be the focus once we can restore agricultural output to the pre-banditry levels.
Well, we look forward to those days. But I know that CFG, you have your forecast and you'll be looking at the numbers. How do you see this year, 2024? I know you said the reforms benefit should be in about 6 months, which is next year. But how do you see this year ending, 2024?
Well, the way I see this 2024 ending is on the trajectory we're going. As we can see the inflation trajectory is coming down. There's really no issue with the increase in the electricity prices, because I think people have been using both generator and electricity at the same time. So if electricity is more expensive and I think it's more available, then I think people are spending less on the generators. So there might be some sort of savings there, because your electricity bill, you're used to a certain level of power bills. The challenge now is the price of PMS. Fuel. I think from what we're seeing with the shortages, I think there's no doubt that we should be looking at fuel prices going to about 1,000 naira per litre. It is this impact that concerns me in terms of being able to manage inflation, because the inflation trajectory is on its way down, though slightly, and we need to be steadfast with these policies. My expectation this year is for us to be more steadfast with these reform policies. The government needs to press the reset button. And more importantly, I think the time has come whereby government needs to sell some of its assets, which is like restructuring its balance sheet to be able to get more equity into it. NNPC has about 35 billion barrels of oil proven. If you look at this and you multiply it by the oil price of maybe $50, you can begin to understand the value of that oil. NNPC balance sheet is about 246 trillion, but it has idle assets that it has spent close to 22 trillion on without any desired results. So it is important now that the government should begin to sell down the oil mine licenses and the oil producing licenses to about 49% or even more than that, so that the serious players can begin to invest in that. And in the process, the government can raise $50 billion. The $50 billion the government will raise will help it reduce the debt burden and help it recapitalize NNPC, so that we can have sustained revenue and, more importantly, foreign exchange availability. Because the inefficiencies in NNPC is weighing Nigeria down at a point in time where oil prices are $80 a barrel, where Nigeria should be smiling. More importantly, all the cancelled. They should be refinanced with structured debt, most probably long-term Euro bonds, which is cheaper, is more transparency, and we can get more accountability. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done within NNPC to ensure foreign exchange availability and revenue assurance for government. So I think this is now long overdue, considering where we are right now. If we can do these things and steadfast with this reform process, then we should end the year better. But like I said, all these policies are not of concern to me. The most important
Seems we lost Mr. Adebajo there. I do hope we can get him to complete his thoughts. And he was talking about the inefficiency in the NNP. Yeah, you're back. Yes, you're back now. You can complete your thought.
Important issues now are the hunger issues. And I think this is really what the government needs to address urgently.
So you talked about, of course, the debt burden and funding the budget and all of that. We know that today, I think today is the last day for that first USD domestic bond of the federal government, where they hope to raise 500 million. But of course, if our oil production first and foremost increases, then we could also look the way of reducing those borrowings, because it looks like they may go for a second one because they said it to be in series, in tranches, so suggesting the sale of assets and all of that. But we've been talking about this for a bit, that's the sale of government assets, the cost of running the government, but it doesn't seem like we're moving forward with that. I wonder if you think there's something that can be done, perhaps the people, the media, to push the government in this direction.
Well, I think what is happening now is that we're getting to a situation whereby we cannot continue to borrow. Although there's been a 30% reduction in revenue to debt ratio, which is positive, giving the government some headroom, the debt profile is now close to 121 trillion naira, which is a record high. And the debt, the cost of servicing that debt this year alone is close to 8.5 trillion naira. So clearly you can see that we can no longer continue to go in this direction. So I think it's long overdue that we begin to take a look at all these things, because if we do not address these issues right now and head on, then it can stall the reform program and it can begin to cause problems for us, by this time next year. So it's very important that government takes some drastic steps. We still have the capacity to borrow, but at the end of the day, when that capacity stops, what are you going to do? So that is why it's important for us to begin to sell down some critical assets now and raise money to ease this debt burden.
All right, Mr. Adebajo, thank you so much for sharing your views with us. We do hope in the coming days and months that we would see some direction towards, some action towards that direction. Mr. Tilewa Adebajo is the Chief Executive.
Thank you.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll see a bit of the market numbers from yesterday's close. To stay with us is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Welcome back. Still watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Let's see a bit of market close from yesterday, Thursday, and well, a good thing is that the NGX recovered at intraday and sustained that green number to the close of trade. And so we see that the market gained 117 billion on the market cap at the close of trade, even though we're still within the 55 trillion naira. All share is 96,000 after it went up 0.21%. And the movers yesterday were in volume, that's the activity charts were mostly in the green. Only the deals went in the red, lost more than 2%. And so we had some of the figures gaining yesterday. Zenith Bank still in the market. We saw that one was in the green. But the counter, however, talking about the sectors, the counter was closed in the red, 0.75%. Consumer goods, however, recovered 1.26%. Industrial goods slightly down. Not a lot of movement going on right there. Insurance seems to be the star of the day. We see Vericas also doing some moves. Investors are getting really interested in that. And oil and gas is retaining that positive sentiment around it. Top trades yesterday, Conhall, PLC, FBN Holding. FBN Holding is back in court. We know that issue has been lingering within the shareholders. So they're back in court, but that put them in the news yesterday, so they were in top trades. Access Co also part of the top trades yesterday. Look at other markets. The smaller NASD markets, for instance, doing really good, 4.57% at 1,797.85 market cap, still within the 2 trillion naira, 2.46 trillion naira. That's for it. The activity yesterday was mostly green, so you have volume up very high, 856. More than 856%, value more than 100%. Our deal was in the red, and stocks traded was unchanged. Now let's see the fixed income market. Look at some of those numbers from the Treasury bond. We see that the secondary market opened on an active note yesterday, driven by continued demand, particularly for the mid to long dated securities. The August 2025 OMO papers, we know that the CBN is back in the market trying to mop up. I guess that's some of the results that we see when we see a currency outside the bank reducing. So for the NTB maturity, this is for the Treasury bills, not the OMO. We can see the rates looking good at almost 20%, especially for the July 2025 and as well as the March 2025. Let's see for OMO. This the CBN's instrument to mop up liquidity. The rates are looking so good, so you can imagine that it will have a lot of response. That's why we had an active market yesterday in the open market securities, and at 21.40, you know, you're close to covering up for inflation right there. And I guess that's as much we can take, but we promise you at 1 p.m. It's Friday, so it's just you and I. So please, let's make it a date. 1 p.m. Business Incorporated will give you intraday numbers, and then we'll have conversations for 55 minutes. Let's head back now to the Sunrise Daily studio.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. We've got Mr. Linus Okori here with us. He is the CEO, Gotney Leadership Center. But before we go to him, let's go to Kaduna. At the moment, residents of Kapam community in Chikun local government area are currently protesting against the alleged environmental pollution of their farms and community by the Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company, KRPC. The protesters, primarily women, claim that a chemical released by the refinery 3 days ago has severely damaged their farms and led to the death of their animals and negatively impacted the health of residents, particularly children and women. Carrying placards with various messages, the demonstrators blocked the main gates of the Kaduna Refinery, preventing staff from entering the premises. At the moment, the management of Kaduna Refinery has yet to issue an official statement regarding the protesters' allegations. Let's listen to one of them.
Dying, our human beings, even some men, the women here, they faint because of the chemical. Even me, I have this, I noticed it yesterday. My throat, I cannot swallow saliva because of the thing that happened day before yesterday and yesterday. If you come to our farm, you will see how the thing damaged everywhere. Even my goats died yesterday because of this smelling. That's the unknown. How many children are down? Children, I cannot count the children that are down for now because some children they're hospital. Even some women that come for protest today, 2 women faint for here because of the smell of the chemical. Now the thing that we want, let them talk to the refinery so that they will take care of people that they get for hospital and the rest of the things that is happening, so that you will help us. We need help, like help. We won't protest because of help, not because of fighting, not because of everything. That's the bless Barminas Joseph David. That's my name. Please, let them plead. We are pleading. The refinery people will let them.
Well, you just have to wonder, where are all the environmental regulatory authorities when they need them? Or then they say they need help. Well, Mr. Korea, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Literally saying they need help with leadership. It's a leadership challenge, the conundrum which we face time and again in this part of the world. So, well, for you, there are several scenarios playing out in the country of which we just need to be steered properly in the right direction. What is it that we seem to be missing about leadership?
So the interesting thing is there's deficits of transformational leaders. Transformational leaders in the regulatory institutions, transformational leaders in the businesses, transformational leaders in just all segments of the Nigerian economy. Because just defining the concept of transformational leadership can explain the implication when there's lack of it. Transformational leadership, in my own word, is that approach of leadership that focuses, that places premium on human beings, inspired by vision, supported by sound leadership values, sound principles. And it is these principles that changes the leader, that also changes the followers. In fact, the followers now begin to transform and think like the leader. And what happens is that the individuals, the outcome of this type of leadership brings about outstanding results in the life of the individual, in the life of the organization, in the life of the people, in the life of the state, in the life of the nation. So what that means is that if anybody is given the responsibility to lead, whether even if it's a task that is a specific task within an institution, and that individual places premium on human beings, that human beings are important to that individual will plan effectively for that individuals under him to have better life, for those individuals under him to become much more than they are. And if they do that with sound principles in mind, sound values in mind, which means that they know exactly how not to cheat these humans that they're working for, what happens? They will do it with the best intentions. And if they do it with quality vision, they're thinking about tomorrow. They're not just thinking about the immediate. They will not delay gratification. Like if somebody's thinking about the future, the person will delay gratification. The person will not be able to stretch to make sure that the right things are done so that the person can leave a legacy.
At the moment, we seem to be at a crossroads, almost across board. So families, individuals, organizations, governments. So, and then it turns out that sometimes people see perhaps some persons in different positions do things, and then it tends to affect them negatively to the extent that there's a bandwagon effect of some persons in leadership doing the wrong things. So where is the best place for something to happen real quick, if we can call them low-hanging fruits, right now to impact us all across board positively? At what stage? Is it a family, organization? Where did that happen?
So the interesting thing is going to be a comprehensive approach to it. And the approach will be from family units, right? If from the family units we have parents that understand the concept of transformational leadership in its regard, and that they're able to lead by example at that stage and inspire, their words, basically. And they begin to set certain standards of behaviors, as the case may be. And then it moves to the school systems. So you want to know what's the quality of those who give education, what's the quality. Some of the young people who go through those institutions are not inspired by their teachers, basically. In fact, sometimes they disrespect their teachers, because of deficit of certain qualities. If you go to the university system, the same thing is going on. So what we're saying is that, but there needs to be an aggressive investment in leadership development. What that means is that a lot of the people who occupy leadership positions today, most of them have not been groomed in the real meaning of leadership. That leadership is not about self. That leadership is about service to the common good, service to other people. That leadership is not just, let me use this position to benefit me.
That leadership is taking that position and doing things that will put you in the hearts of people forever. So once there is a right education that is intense, I'm talking about intense, huge investment, not just word of mouth. I'm talking, and then focusing on all these areas I've mentioned, from the grassroots, from the even rural leadership development, process, explaining to those people in the local communities how they are leading. You can see a lot of people who didn't even go to school, but guess what? They have certain leadership competencies that they operate with. They have built communities, they have built businesses in local communities, and they are influencing their communities for good. So what we're saying is that we have not given leadership development the attention that it deserves. Because when somebody is thrown up in a position of leadership and is just a good person, being a good person is not enough, right? There are certain competencies required.
You do these leadership trainings quite a bit, don't you?
Absolutely.
What kind of impact would you say you've had?
I have seen people transform.
Nigerian leaders?
I have seen a lot of people transform. I'm talking about, let me give you an instance. An organization send their people to be trained. And by the time they come to the institution, right, we normally would check out where their leadership metric is, the baseline. By the time we are done with the training, you realize that an engineer that's worked for over 25 years, for instance, doesn't even understand the leadership dynamics that is critical. So his eyes opens. Oh my God, wow. So it's like what would have been primary, elementary, right now is no longer elementary, because people are now prizing those things, and you see them go back to the organizations, they improve, they transform, and they get better. So what we now need is a critical mass of the people, right, who are now well trained and well groomed, who can now go into the systems and begin to transform. We need a lot of leadership capital in the politics, for instance, in the political system, in the political parties, when leaders of political parties are people who are visionary, which means they are not thinking about self or pocket, they're thinking about leaving a legacy. And that will impact on the recruitment process. Do you get what I mean? The standards and the quality of those that will fly their tickets across board.
I mean, everyone is talking about leadership across Africa.
It's not just Africa.
Yes, across the world.
It's not just Africa. I want to let you know this. Yeah. In Britain today, England today, there's deficit of leadership capital in different parts. What has happened over time is the fact that some of these developed countries, they have built institutions. You know what I'm talking about? They have built institutions in such a way that those institutions can be more like a check and balance, right? So at the end of the day, so when even
a check on the individuals.
Absolutely. Yes. So when some of these individuals in developed nations, are not exercising leadership in that sense, institutions can check it. But in Africa, the point on that we have not even built the institutions. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So at the end of the day, when powerful individuals are thrown up in a business, for instance, the powerful individual can actually control the culture in that business environment based on his mindset.
I mean, it's something that the Nigerian people need to really understand as we try to change, as we try to develop our country. That these indices have to check. But let's take a look at this right now. Let's take a look at some of the things that are necessary for transformational leadership and things that areas that we can use to evaluate leadership and its impact on the people. I think we have some of that on the screen for you right now. So talk us through some of these things, Mr. Okorie. We're looking at leadership, transparency, corruption and anti-corruption efforts, effective governance, economic management, policy implementation, and security challenges.
So absolutely. So if you look at all of those, if I come into an institution, I want to study certain metrics. For instance, I want to know what's the quality of vision and planning in this institution. So when you have a leader who is driven by long-term thinking, he's thinking about the future of the organization in 10 years, in 20 years. So that leader stretches and ensure that everybody in that organization would get to understand the purpose of the existence of that organization. And then if it's a tenured system, there are priorities, for instance, that they might want to be able to accomplish. And the vision is shared. It's a shared vision. And everybody in the organization there's a sense of urgency. It is vision that drives growth specifically. And so if you also go, and that would, jumpstart what we call even implementation of policies. So when there is a clear vision, the metrics of policy implementation specifically will be sharper. People begin to execute those policies based on the vision pursuits. And that would also impact the way the management, the economic management of that system works. You understand what I'm talking about? And so people will begin to consult widely, because the leader is a consensus builder. The leader is somebody who, says, I know nothing, right? And he begins to go, who are the best we have? Who are the best people we have in this country? Who are the best people we have in this organization? And begin to pull them together and begin to utilize them to be able to get things done. So in that context, nobody is bringing somebody to the table because that individual is my brother. That the person is coming to the table because the individual, is first of all competent. So that executive leadership knowledge of finding people who are competent and surrounding the leader is one of the things that can change the way organizations, do their things. So for me, it's critical.
Yeah. All right.
I want to ask one simple question around culture. I've heard Dr. Sam Adeyemi, also in the leadership consultancy space, such as yourself, quote someone who said that culture will eat your leadership or your strategies for breakfast or for lunch or whatever it is. So what's the place of culture? And I'm not just talking about African culture. What's the place of culture in these whole paradigm that we're talking about? Because if there was going to be any change in leadership, any effects of leadership, culture is going to play a significant role. Because what happens in the civil service, be it at the federal or state levels, will eat up any good leadership strategy you can think about unless there is something done about culture, don't you think?
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, absolutely. So when the vision is actually in place and it's a pointer, the next set of things that follows will be core values of the institution. And if the leader is a quality leader and the leader has certain core values that he respects, now it is the responsibility of the leader, to actually ensure that the people within that organization would imbibe those core values. It is not, at the end of the day, those core values over time, the moment people begin to practice it within that institution and it becomes a way of life for that organization, over a long period of time, it becomes a culture. Take, for instance, the issue of punctuality. And if an institution, enables every member of the organization practice coming early to work, coming early for meetings, and all of that, and over a period of time, if everybody imbibes that, then it will be strange in that organization if somebody comes late. It's just like going late for a meeting in Japan, because in Japan it has become culture for people to respect time, and because they think that if you respect my time, then you respect me. So that also is something about excellence within the organization. Over a period of time, it becomes excellent. Now, my question will be that, does culture matter? Yes, culture drives growth. What is our culture in the institutions in this country? The civil service you have mentioned, what is it known for? Can we transform the civil service to now begin to celebrate things like excellent, things like, everybody committed to respecting time and getting the job done, being result-driven?
Just a quick one, Mr. Okorie, before we go, my sincere apologies, and I think I quite understanding and agree with a number of things you've said significantly. But there are those who would also look at our politics through which leaders are employed or elected into office. Should we wait until they get into office before we start talking about these leadership initiatives that you're talking about? Or do you think it is something that should be a part of the recruitment process, our leadership recruitment process at the national or state levels? How do we do that, seeing that the political parties themselves are the way they are?
So the interesting thing is that if we start a comprehensive process of ensuring that our educational system, have core set of values for leadership development, it is a research-driven, institutionalized process where people start early in their lives. For instance, student union government, I was student union government president. And, being in the university, I actually know that there are a lot of all of the bad behaviors in politics, specifically. Most of it started, in the universities where, people are giving to taking monies that do not belong to them over time, and they're living above their means and things. It has become part of their life. So they grow up and they say, I want to be a politician, in that particular sense. So if we invest heavily, I'm talking about investment, in training. Training is critical. So you're talking about spending billions in training. Yeah. If we talk about training in this country, most people play down on training. If we have a comprehensive curriculum to teach a leadership education in our institutions of higher learning, in our secondary school, there are clubs promoted there, and it becomes part of our system, we will grow a culture.
Is there any current training program from Frimbi Godin that people can attend to get some of this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So at the Godin Leadership Center, we offer several leadership training programs, but more particularly at the moment is the National Leadership Conference, where we are bringing 1,000 people from all over the country. Imagine if 1,000 people from institutions, organizations, businesses, you run an institution, you run an organization, you are a CEO of a company, you are a business leader, you are a government official, and you see this conference holding on the 20th and 21st of September 2024 as a place where you can come and reinvent yourself. Reinvent your leadership physically, yes, absolutely. Reinvent your leadership capital, because we're attracting some of the best minds in the world. People like Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is one of the best in corporate leadership with over 80 books to his name. And the guy who wrote, Eat That Frog, right?
He's going to be there physically?
He's going to be there via, live, but online, right? He's going to be there live. Okay. And you can ask all the questions you can. But we're going to bring in Michael Roberts live. He's going to be present live. I mean, this is an American billionaire who has built business through a very deprived Black community and has succeeded in America to build businesses and all of that. And all of these people are going to be coming from all over the world, and they will be in Nigeria. 1,000 of them is going to be massive. So
that sounds a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll look forward to that, and hope that at least we'll get a lot of desired change that we all require in this country from conferences and programs like this one. Linus Okorie, CEO, Godin Leadership Center, thank you for coming, and all the best to you for that conference. Let's take some messages quickly from you before we go. Tom Egbele says, it is also the... Whoa, is that the first one? I'm not sure.
There's so many messages.
Okay, Tom says, it is also the responsibility of the federal and state governments to bear the collateral damages bandits and other miscreants are causing members of NARD and their families. It is preposterous for us to think that what happens to doctors doesn't affect us. Government must sit up, he says.
Pastor Law Alpha C says, for government at the center that fixates on placating the fiscal interests of political office holders at the expense of other key sectors, the threat by doctors to strike may not influence their decisions to address their justified concerns. I think we have this one from Professor Imonoka. And Akenai says, either we recruit more policemen and military personnel or involve the withdrawal of excessive numbers of security personnel attached to the affluent Nigerians and political class, so that key institutions like healthcare, education, judicial, and transport facilities that seem vulnerable based on statistical evidence be adequately protected.
Well, Yes, there's this one from Festus Akimboyewa, quite a number of them, but this is one is talking about what FG must end, and says the FG must end the long-running dispute they have with ASU, but since university education cannot be run on the cheap, ASU must allow government to charge appropriate fees for university education. Also, lecturers must work harder to attract the brightest students around the world and stop disrupting the students via their incessant strikes.
Yeah. How about this one from Kelvin? He says, well done, guys, for talking about the skyrocketing cost of goods in Nigeria. It's outrageous that landlords are hiking rents to unaffordable levels. And DSTV is increasing fees for channels that offer little to no new content. FCCPC must step in to protect Nigerians from these unfair practices, he says.
Felix Max says the rising cost of goods in Nigeria is becoming unbearable. Ordinary items like meat are being sold at exorbitant prices for small pieces, and cab drivers are charging excessively for short distances. Even basic necessities like gari, feed, and bread have become luxuries unaffordable for the common man. While economic challenges play a role, it's troubling how some of us are taking advantage of the situation, further deepening the crisis. We must strive for fairness and not exploit each other in these tough times.
Unfortunately, they're not on screen. Sorry about that. All right, so if you need access to GoatNet leadership, just contact us. We'll get you those numbers directly. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank God it's Friday. Have a great weekend ahead. We'll see you next week. I'm Kayla Megwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a fantastic day ahead.